John, I was just watching the movie Airworthy, and it's good. Have you seen Airworthy, the movie?
I have not.
Everybody needs to tune in Airworthy, and I guess Laura mentioned that could be, it's on YouTube, but it's also on Tubi.
That's what she said, yes.
And, this is, I sometimes feel guilty, John, that we're having too much fun trying to help people learn about the importance of maintenance. And can you have too much fun?
No. Not possible.
No. Now you can get in trouble by having too much fun, but having fun is that's the reason I love being a mechanic. It's fun.
I always had a lot of fun. Then I had a lot of pain when I went to the NTSB because you can't go around at the level that job takes and deal with the aftermath without having it affect you.
No.
And since leaving it, I go to great lengths to have fun now.
John, when back in my NTSB days, I found myself getting almost calloused because it was getting routine to go out on these field investigations, and every one of them was different. Every one of them dealt with a loss of life and a family member that was not going to be sitting around the dinner table. And I got caught. I had to change my direction, and that's the reason I left the NTSB.
That's a lot of people leave the NTSB for that reason. You can only pick up pieces of people for so long, and it gets to you. Emotionally, it gets to you. Some people handle it different. We've got some pretty hard. If you judge them from TV, we got some pretty hard investigators at the NTSB. But I can tell you, that night back in the hotel room, that they are altogether different.
Yeah.
All right. If you're human, you just can't ignore that.
No.
And you have to get rid of it too. I was debriefed several times before I came to the NTSB because of what I had seen and been part of in the accidents before I came to the NTSB. And the doctor that I had taught me to cry it out. So now you're looking at somebody who's cried on nationwide TV repeatedly, but you can't hold it in. You got to unload it. So.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to the passion and the sincerity that we have in this industry. And John, I want to get back into the maintenance competition. And you have put an inordinate amount of time and effort into that, and probably is going to be one of your strongest legacies.
I didn't do it for legacy. I did it because I was sick and tired of everybody ignoring the maintenance and what we brought to the table. So I wanted to just make sure that everybody knew that we are an integral piece of the aviation industry, including aviation safety. Right? It wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for the maintenance people doing their piece. Aviation is like a glove. We got all these fingers in it, flights, operations, the maintenance is one. So we're all supposed to fit together. Well, we were ignored for a long time, and I just decided that we weren't going to be ignored any longer.
Well, and John, a term that I have used for many, many years is called the ultimate airman. I meet pilots and they say, "Are you?" Excuse me, I just had to clear my throat, and I just broke somebody's eardrums back there at the control panel. Have you? Help me, John. I just lost my thought. I just choked myself. Did I mention this is live? Okay. I was on a great roll there, and I cleared my throat, and I worried about Mike's ears.
Well, he's the ultimate airman.
Ultimate airman. Okay. Pilots. Are you a pilot? Do you want to be a mechanic? Says, well, no, I can't be a mechanic. Says, well, why not? And mechanics. Have you ever thought about flying? Says, I can't afford it. Really? Do you want to be a pilot? Says, well, yeah, I'd love to. Says, well, then get it. Because the ultimate airman, actually, the trifecta would be an air traffic controller on top of it. So mechanic, pilot, air traffic controller. I mean, when can you know too much about the aircraft that you're flying?
No, you can't. But today,
Unless it's on fire, that's too much knowledge.
but today, you know, let's carry that thought.
Okay.
All right. So we have Airbus as the major manufacturer today. Can a pilot understand that airplane from one end to the other? No. He goes through training and he hits the high points for all the different systems. And then it drives me crazy because then pilots will talk about the systems like they know the system cold. You can't know it. Even maintenance people, we don't know all the systems cold. There's just too many and there are too many controls on it. You know, and today with electronic circuits and/or circuits, you know, which will spin your head around like crazy when you start finding more than one in the system. So that means they're using the same wire to do more than one thing. It's just very, very complicated.
And computerizations, the logic behind some of these computers that fly the aircraft, particularly fly-by-wire, is they're logical and they're programmed to act a certain way under a certain circumstance. And I think we've seen some of that with some of our more recent accidents where the operator wasn't in tune with what the computer was saying or expecting. Remember, I think we lost our first Airbus. They overrode the system for doing a low pass at an air show,
Right.
and flew it into the trees.
Right.
Because the computer was, we're landing. And the pilots are trying to go full power and pull back, and it wouldn't respond. So we learned a lot through that, but we lost a lot through that. So,
Yeah, it's an interesting time we're in right now.
Drones. Maintenance on drones is going to be very, very important because the autonomous career it's the Jetsons. It's here.
Well, you got to back up a second. All right, so we have drones coming in a big way, and I've been involved with the drone industry for a while. In fact, they once got some accolades from them about being very influential in that area. But you have a drone. There's an FAA requirement to determine airworthiness before any vehicle takes off. That's the pre-flight, done by the pilot. Well, we don't have a pilot. Who is going to verify, certify, when that drone takes off that it meets airworthiness, right?
Yeah.
The standards that we have. So that's one obstacle that's coming. And who's going to repair them? You know, when Jim Baylog was the head of flight standards at the FAA, his position was it had to be an AMP or a repairman to do it. So I don't know if I don't know if the FAA has changed their thinking on that or not because they haven't said. But these are things that are all going to have to be addressed. And we're not talking about the little DJI drones. We're talking about today's. If you go to anything that has drones there, the big one is bigger than this table.
Oh yeah.
I should say the small one.
Well, and look at the Joby. What they're doing with their 4-passenger.
Right. And they're doing that over in the Middle East. I actually have somebody I know that's over in the Middle East collecting data for that operation in order to present to the FAA when Joby starts to come forward to try to do that here in the States. Mm-hmm. Now they've been playing around in New York City with Joby has been moving around. New York City is unique in that they're surrounded by water, and the rivers are, they're not insignificant. They're a mile wide. Mm-hmm. So you have corridors which you can operate them where you're not operating them over people. But that's going to change when they start bringing people from Manhattan to JFK to catch flights. Mm-hmm. And then that's not going to be just the average person. That's going to be some CEO or some C-suite people that can afford the fee because it's going to be steep. But you don't want, if you got a president that you're paying millions of dollars a year to run your company, do the stockholders want that individual to be stuck in New York City traffic for 3 hours going to JFK? And they'd rather have him using his time in the office getting value from what they're paying him.
His or her.
His or her.
Her time.
Right. So that's where Joby is going to shine, in as much as like New York Helicopter did 60 years ago. leaving from the Pan Am building and taking the people out to the airport. All right, so beating the city traffic, but allowing more time in the office. So it's going to be we're entering a very interesting time when it comes to drones. We're in transition. There's a lot of things that are firming. They're about as firm as Jell-O right now, but they're going to firm up soon, and we're going to have a direction that's coming. In fact, what's going on over in Ukraine today is having a dramatic effect on where this thing goes worldwide. You know, so it's not just military drones, it's the proof of concept, it's the distance, there's so much in that whole process that it's going to be interesting to watch. I watch it all the time. I love drones, but we'll see where it goes.
We're living in a very tumultuous period of time. It really is, and it's changing. But the thing that I would like to drive people, show of hands of how many folks know PAMA. Just get right off the top of your head of what PAMA, what that is an acronym for. And PAMA.org, there's so much information that you can gain from that website. And to be part of the organization, we encourage you to, and it's not that expensive, to be honest.
It's too free.
We need your attention, and with that we will have you will learn. It will modify your behavior, and that's what we're all about. And speaking of modifying behavior, I think we have a movie star in our midst here. Has anybody seen The Rehearsal? I think it was it's
HBO.
It's HBO program, The Rehearsal. This guy here has a major role in that. It would be very interesting for you to seek that out and watch The Rehearsal. And you'll see just how serious this guy is and how he cleans up so well and wears his makeup just right. Just right. He's Hollywood. Greg Feith has nothing over this man. So,
yeah, that was quite an experience. Quite an experience. So
right down to your wardrobe. I remember you telling me about it, your wardrobe.
Oh yeah, they had a trailer. I had a trailer because we were shooting remotely, and so you go in there and change. I have refreshments for you, little snacks, and in between shooting, and because we shoot from sunrise to we're on set sometimes till 11 o'clock at night, so it's long days, but it was different and was fun, you know. So it really was. They'd come in wardrobe. I had to bring I had to bring 5 suits with me because they shoot so much during the day. They're shooting different segments, and you can't have different clothes on. So if the first day you're in brown, the next day you're in black, and you know, so you keep changing your clothes. But you're doing that in one day. But they're going to use it. It's a 6-part series, so they might be using one scene in the first part, and the next scene you shoot may be from the 6th show. So
you probably never even thought you'd be a movie star.
That came out of the blue. When I met the people that were part of the show and the planning in the beginning, I met them in Las Vegas by accident. It was a friend of mine at the FAA said, "I got somebody that is looking for somebody like you, and they want to talk to you." I said, "Sure." So we met in a donut shop. I was going to say Dunkin' Donuts, but it wasn't Dunkin', it was some other one. But anyway, we met in a donut shop, and they picked my brain about accidents for the better part of an afternoon, and went away. And I thought that what they were doing was an accident-related show. I don't hear anything for a long, long time, over a year. And one day the phone calls, and it just so happened that it was a week that I didn't have much to do. And the phone rang, and it was the same person I sat with, and he says, "We're shooting tomorrow. Can you be out here?"
They gave you a whole day notice.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I packed up, and away I went. So because of all the suits and shirts and all, I had 2 big suitcases. So I felt like the Beverly Hillbillies moving, and I went off, and it was fun. So they kept going out as we did more and more of them.
Well, John, we have about maybe 20 or 30 more years for you to continue your actor career.
I hope so.
And we have a lot to do. But PAMA, I really, and please encourage the folks to go to PAMA and join us.
Well, please, I want you in the PAMA become active with PAMA. We're going to do the podcast coming up. By the end of the year, we're going to do a podcast. Unfortunately, I have to put this character in there. But we're going to highlight the maintenance people. We're going to help them educate the maintenance people because there's so much going on. You know, something as simple as a parts tag, understanding all the ins and outs of a parts tag. And we just had a discussion here between the shows about what the parts manual says, use part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then when you go get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you find out it's obsolete, and now what do? So there's a whole procedure into all of that. We're going to start putting them out. One of the things that I recognize as being a problem across the maintenance is the information flow. Now AI is going to help that, and we're probably going to end up using AI ourselves to get the message out. It's just a tool, that's all it is. But somebody has to pull it together. And, you know, the airlines are going to pull it together for their needs. The business community is going to pull it together for their needs. Well, the general aviation community has nobody to pull it together, and that's where the space that I want to be in. I want to pull that together for the folks and help them with progressions as well. So maybe you work for general aviation for a while, and then you want to move up to air carrier because the pay is so much better. And working conditions may be different. So we want to pull all that information together so people can make informed decisions about their lives and their futures and what they want to do.
And John, I'm going to ask a question of our studio audience here. How many folks are aware and know what the Dirty Dozen is? Okay, we'll say maybe half of them, the Dirty Dozen. I encourage you, go onto this thing or a computer somewhere and do a search for FAA Dirty Dozen and learn it. It's very informative and it's very real. It's true. And I'm going to taunt you.
I'll give you a little history. So the Dirty Dozen came about in the early 90s by 2 Canadian inspectors, airworthiness inspectors. And I worked with them after they had the idea, but I worked with them a little bit in those early years, and I am a big supporter of the Dirty Dozen. One of my frustrations with today's version of the Dirty Dozen, it is the same version in the early 1990s. Now that came about, the Dirty Dozen came about around the same time that cockpit resource management came about, but we've had at least 5 or 6 different versions of cockpit resource management, but we haven't had any investment from any of the government authorities in improving and advancing the maintenance human factors. None. So that's frustrating on my part because it's stale. A lot of the mechanics today look at it and say, oh yeah, I learned that 5 years ago or whatever. And it's stale. We need to put some new processes in place, update the verbiage, and do something to bring it into the 21st century. So we're going to do some of that at PAMA as much as we can. You know, money drives everything. So depending on how much money we have to work with, it's how much change we can try to facilitate.
Well, money is a driver. And I know we're going to start wrapping up our, believe it or not, our second segment here. But we do need to encourage those with the capability, those with the resources, to help get behind our AMC, our competition awards, and help us sponsor this thing. I will kick in a certain amount. I can't come up with another $100,000, but I can come up with something. And everybody, many hands make light work. So I mean, a lot of 500 here, 1,000 there. Put it in your budget for next year for your big corporations out there that's had a good year. Share it with some folks that could really appreciate and use those funds.
Well, we do need the money. We need money for the trophy, for that recognition, annual recognition. You know, the competition itself is hugely expensive, hugely expensive. Thank God for Snap-on and for American Airlines, Alaska, Boeing, they all contribute to it. And, you know, they're there to fill their ranks of people. So we have what we call recruitment row at the competition, where we have, I think this year we had either 12 or 14 tables where companies can come and interview and talk to the students.
And hire them. And hire them on the spot.
Yes. You know, and again, it's the largest collection of A&Ps in the country. So this year, over 900 A&P mechanics were in one room. So where do you see that? You don't see that. There's no school that has 900 students. So it's the biggest collection of potential employees that you're going to find anywhere. And we're in Orlando again in 27 at the same convention center, 2 years in a row, which is unusual. We follow MRO Americas wherever they go. And so
MRO, explain to folks what MRO is.
MRO Americas is maintenance, repair, and overhaul. It's just a common term we in maintenance have used since I've been in the business to designate major repair facilities. And so they've been running this trade show for a long time, way back, I think in the 80s, at least. It used to be part of Aviation Week. It now stands alone and as another venue, but they run shows in not only the U.S. and South America and in Europe, several locations in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. We're going to go to Asia with them next year, to Singapore, and do it over there. You know, mechanics around the world are the same. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, it's funny about that. You know, I've chased broken airplanes around the world when I was younger. And you go to airports, wherever you are, and you need help, just find the mechanic, because they'll help you.
It's not like when you go up to a Buick dealership and you drive up and say, hey, my car's making a funny noise. Well, just fill out this work order. We'll have one of our service administrators call you. Just go to the waiting room, and we'll let you know when we can get you in to take a look at it. Yeah. You taxi up in an airplane and you find a mechanic around the airport, they're going to come out and they're going to fill out a work order. What's it doing? Well, it sounds like it's this. Oh, there's your problem right there. And that's typically what happens around your general aviation airports.
Yep.
Doesn't happen like that everywhere.
You know, you reminded me of a story. This goes back into the, it could be the 70s or early 80s. And we had a DC-930 take off out of Boston, Air Canada, and it blew the bulkhead out the back of the airplane.
Ooh.
There was a crack in the bulkhead. That's a major structural item for those of you that don't know. So, you know, the airplane's a big tube, and so the bulkhead is the one that seals the back. Pressurization, and it broke. And the airplane came back and landed. It didn't. It destroyed a bunch of things, but it didn't do enough damage to take away the ability to fly the airplane. But anyway, I happened to be doing an interview with Forbes magazine, and I had in the vehicle for the airline that I worked for, the reporter for Forbes, and we had just gone through a whole bunch of stuff. And he looks at the airplane, it's parked over, remotely parked, and a lot of people around it, and he said that there was a truck from Eastern Airlines that was just there, and he pulled away, and there's another airline there. And he said, what's that all about? I said, that's their maintenance people. They're all coming over here to see what happened to that airplane. And they're going to take what they see back to the hangar, and they're going to be looking at the airplanes that they work on to see if it had similar problems. But that's what happens in our business. We are connected, all right? Even though we're different companies, the maintenance side is more connected than many, many people realize.
We will share so much. I'm going to drive our production guys crazy back there. Autumn on one, I had just heard of let's see if we can get our camera person on number one to zoom in on that card right there. Let's see.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay, now hold what you got. Hold what you got. I'm going to flip it around here. This is what we encourage you to go and look at when you pull up your movies. We're going to send you to The Rehearsal, and that is HBO. And we're also going to send you to Airworthy, the movie Airworthy on Tubi. And I'm not going to tell you what Airworthy is about, but I think you can pretty well figure it out. It has something to do with airplanes and aerospace and space. We haven't even touched on space, John.
We need another hour.
We need days because things are, and we only got 3 minutes to finish this up. But this is not, we're not going to end this. We're going to conclude this show, but there's going to be many more shows to come and podcasts. This is one thing that we really need. You're involved with what, 3 podcasts now?
Yes.
Are you doing any good?
I'm told our reach is substantial at times. You know, we have approaching 100,000 people that watch our podcast, depending on the subject. And, some of those have to be listening. Mm-hmm. So.
And we got to use our system, our social media. I just talked to Carolyn Hinton a little earlier about social media. We can fight it. We can say we don't deal with it. I don't mess with that. I don't do Facebook. I don't do that crap. No, it's here. If we don't use it, it's going to use us. And we don't want to be on the receiving end all the time. We want to give and contribute.
Well, listen, our generation, yours and mine, we're not into the digital world like the kids are today. If you want to reach the young guys, and I want to reach the younger generation that's coming in to mechanics, you have to get into the digital world today. Yeah. TikTok and the rest of it. I mean, I remember when Facebook was the thing with kids, my kids, and then when the adults started getting on Facebook, the kids all bailed out and they went to something else, and then the adults followed them and they bailed out and went to something else. So.
As for old people, I guess Instagram's coming up to be the next big thing here, but
X and all that, whatever. You have to use all the means of communications you have to deliver the safety message to all those different segments of aviation that I talked about.
And John, I want to thank you for you dropped the F word a couple times today.
I did?
Yeah, fun.
Oh.
What are you talking about, huh?
Well, it's not uncommon. They used to take bets at the NTSB how long it would take me to drop an F-bomb on TV, but I managed not to.
Well, John, again, this is not the end. This is the beginning.
Yes.
And we have FAA credit coming at the end of this show for your wings credit. Pay attention. John, thank you so much for your time, and I mean that seriously. And we're going to take a pause, and we have more shows. As a matter of fact, go to our website, go to YouTube, and follow us, and we will be there for you, but it's up to you to pull us out. So we will see you next interview.
From a very young age, I just saw the magic that was the airlines.
I wanted the adventure. I wanted the opportunity to travel.
PMOT just like popped up, and I thought that was fate.
All of the skills, everything that you're going to need to succeed, you can get at PMOT.
I never envisioned that I would have a career in aviation. And now that I've been here, I can't imagine working any other place.
And I want to nail it.
From a very young age, I just saw the magic that was the airlines.
I wanted the adventure. I wanted the opportunity to travel.
PMOT just like popped up, and I thought that was fate.
All of the skills, everything that you're going to need to succeed, you can get at PMOT.
I never envisioned that I would have a career in aviation. And now that I've been here, I can't imagine working any other place.
from a very young age, I just saw the magic that was the airlines.
I wanted the adventure. I wanted the opportunity to travel.
PMOT just like popped up, and I thought that was fate.
All of the skills, everything that you're going to need to succeed, you can get at PMOT.
I never envisioned that I would have a career in aviation. And now that I've been here, I can't imagine working any other place.
Volume on this thing? Can you hear me? Test, Scott, can you hear me? Barely hear you. Turn the volume all the way up. Hey everybody, welcome back to Plane Time, episode 34, August 15th, 2026. Got to get in the right century. My name's John Tenney. I'm your host today. This is a special segment. We had a little disappointment, a little tragedy happened. Well, hopefully not a tragedy yet. But Raul Salazar was supposed to be here with us today to talk about gyrocopters, and Raul's wife had to go to the hospital, and we're keeping an eye on it. So far, good news. I do have another element of good news. One of our board members, Ginger Adelstone, is on today with us. She's watching us from somewhere up north, so we want to give her a shout out. But what do we do when our guests don't show up? Well, we give one of our volunteers an opportunity. And unfortunately, all I could find was Scott Douglas. So today we're going to be interviewing Scott Douglas, who is a local CFI. I call him Scotty because he's known as Scotty O. Douglas on Facebook, if you've ever watched him. And he is a regular member of Hangar Talk, which is my FAA safety team responsibility. I lead this, I don't know what we call it, unorganized group of pilots and other individuals on the first Wednesday of every month.
Organized chaos.
Unorganized.
Unorganized chaos.
Yeah. It's an interesting group, and Scotty has been a catalyst of a lot of the arguments. And in fact, one of them actually worked out pretty good. Before we get into why I really want to talk to you, but let's just talk about the whole departure leg. Okay. This was a little bit of controversy. Someone told Scotty that the upwind leg is not the upwind leg anymore. It is now called the departure leg, which is when you're taking off from the runway. And the upwind leg is the opposite of the downwind leg, like on the other side, which I kind of get the logic of it, but none of us old timers had ever heard of it. And you said, well, look, it's right here in the AIM. And lo and behold, there was a page in the AIM. And then somebody looked like, yeah, but 3 pages before it says the upwind leg is the departure leg. So we brought this to attention in our Facebook group, the Central Florida Aviation Safety Hangar Talk. And what do you know?
Well, you know,
the FAA issued a ruling.
They did. The FAA came out and said we've got two-time of the year CFI, John Tenney, and we can't possibly have a book that's being published worldwide that's not what he knows, so we're going to change the book rather than change John Tenney. It was just way easier.
I knew there was a mistake asking you to be on here. Well, this is what you're going to get for the next 5 or 7 minutes or so long we have. But Scotty is a local flight instructor here in Central Florida who has not applied to be Flight Instructor of the Year yet, have you?
That's not true. I have applied.
Oh, you have? Okay, well, then you haven't asked me to write you a letter yet.
It said I could only ask 2 people.
Oh, no, you can ask, no.
Oh.
It's measured by the pound, okay? The more recommendations you put in there, the better, believe me. So,
No,
we'll talk about that too. Any of you instructors out there, like Ryan Binns, I know you're working to get some more instructions, get some more letters written, Ryan. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is like we both came up through the clubs. There's a lot of ways to learn to fly. There's the big schools, Embry-Riddle, ATP, Akron, all the big schools here. Then there's the military way, which is not an option for everybody, but then there's the flying club. And you and I both came up through the clubs. I want to talk a little bit about that. You are currently instructing in 2 clubs,
Correct.
which are?
So I'm currently instructing in the Orlando Christian Flying Club
Right.
out of Sanford and the Van Anda Flying Club out of everywhere else.
Just about everywhere else. Okay.
Oh, he's got airplanes in Apopka, he's got airplanes in Kissimmee, airplanes in Tampa, he's got airplanes loaned out to Executive and somewhere up in Daytona.
Yeah, it's a good, I like the club. That's my home club, actually, is Van Anda Aviation right now. Although I did grow up with the CAP Flying Club, which is now defunct.
Well, the thing about Van Anda is, you'll never find anybody else that treats their airplanes with that level of maintenance. When the owner will take his family in the airplane that's available, that's kind of a seal.
And he's a mechanic himself.
Correct.
And he has mechanics working for him. He has a full-time hangar doing you're right, that's a good thing. They're very well-maintained airplanes. And so that's a good thing to remember. But let's talk about some of the differences between going into a flying club. And we were talking about this before. Is if you go to one of those big schools, they tell you what to learn and when to learn it.
Exactly.
Right.
They will give you a syllabus and they'll say, hey, this is what we're going to learn, this is when we're going to learn it. They kind of hold your hand through a lot of things. With, I tell people the benefit of joining a club is if you're a self-starter, you can do whatever you want to do for a lot cheaper and you can gain a larger, your wealth of knowledge just increases exponentially because you're hanging around people that have just been doing this. And then you've got the family connection of everybody that's in the club.
Yeah, you get to know the people better. It's more long term, and it's on your own time, your own
Correct.
schedule. I've always told people, if you've got the time, if you can take a year off and you've got the money, go to one of those clubs and schools, run through fast, get all your ratings, and away you go. Then you can start building time and by instructing and work your way up to an airline job or something like that.
Well, that's why I tell people I'm not a CFI, I'm a flight instructor, because flight instructors teach, CFIs try to go to the airlines.
Well, okay, no. CFIs used to be certified flight instructors. Now there's another one we can get started. Now it's certificated.
Well, that was an FAA pedantics because they can't take away a certification, but they can take. They can't take away a certification, but they can take away a.
You're right the other way.
Yeah.
They can't take away a certified, but they can take away a
certificate.
Yes, okay, exactly. So that's why we've always thought if you've got the time and the money and you can take off your work for everything, yes, go to one of those big schools, get it done quickly. But if you're like the rest of us, we have careers, you want to work on your own time, you're not in a hurry to get your ratings, we like the flying clubs. So that's what, I wanted to ask you about that. There's a bunch of other things I want to ask you about it, but we're up against a time wall here because we've got one more segment coming up after this with Dr. Bartisla, who's going to go into the weather guy, as you all know him, has one more great segment. But before we go, I just wanted to say, thank you all for joining us here on Plane Time. And on behalf of Scotty and myself, we wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us. Remember, stick around after and watch the credits because there will be a Wings code. You do get Wings credit for watching this. And there will be an email where you'll send it into and you will get that. It'll be a ground credit, but hey, you need them all. And thank you for joining us, and we'll be back in 10 minutes.
a very young age, I just saw the magic that was the airlines.
I wanted the adventure. I wanted the opportunity to travel.
PMOT just like popped up, and I thought that was fate.
All of the skills, everything that you're going to need to succeed, you can get at PMOT.
I never envisioned that I would have a career in aviation. And now that I've been here, I can't imagine working any other place.
From a very young age, I just saw the magic that was the airlines.
I wanted the adventure. I wanted the opportunity to travel.
PMOT just like popped up, and I thought that was fate.
All of the skills, everything that you're going to
Hello, I'm Dr. George Bartisla with the Florida Aviation Network. Welcome to Sky Insights. Today we'll be talking about hurricanes, actually known as tropical cyclones in the meteorological world. I want to make just a quick statement. Because hurricanes are so large and infrequent, these storms are difficult to measure and model in computer software. Many aspects of the storm's dynamics and surface interactions with the oceans remain unresolved. Let's take a quick look at what we know so far. Now, tropical meteorology is a very complex subject. This is a one semester class I'm going to do in less than 30 minutes, so let's see what we can get. Note, tropical cyclones, like I said, or hurricanes, are relatively rare. The required simultaneous preconditions are also relatively rare. However, the necessary conditions for formation are quite common in the tropics. Atmospheric conditions must be just right for hurricane formation. As we call it, the Goldilocks principle. It's got to be just right. Now, here's Hurricane Ian back in September of 2022. We can see we've got radar imagery on the left, we've got satellite imagery on the lower right, and we have a historical track in the upper right. What I always tell my students to do, and we do in class, is we learn to plot the hurricane on a hurricane tracking chart. You can download these off the internet. Make sure you get one that's got the longitude and latitude lines marked well enough that you can pick them up with a ruler. And if you take the time to model that storm, you will know where it is. But remember, a hurricane is not a track. It's not a line like a tornado. It's a storm that's usually average 300 miles in diameter, which is the length of the Florida Peninsula. Here I have about a 50-mile diameter circle just for this tracking. Now, this is a video of storm surge that was taken by a storm chaser. He mounted a camera up on a utility pole. He doesn't allow his video to be played online in a session like we're doing, but you can go onto his website. It's called Max Olson Chasing, and you can watch this live video. But I want to set the scene. You see the red structure, the red building with two garages. To the left is a hotel, and to the left of that, about 100 feet, is the Gulf Coast, and this is in Fort Myers, and the storm surge is starting to come ashore. Now the storm surge has come ashore and the water is up to the top of those garages, which is about 10 feet. Here the building's starting to come off the foundation. Here it's come off the foundation. Here it's starting to go down the street. Now it's gone down the street and it's gone, and this is about 3 hours later. So storm surge for people that live near the coast is one of the biggest problems. What is a hurricane? A hurricane or a tropical cyclone is a rotating vortex with deep organized convection and a closed wind circulation around a well-defined center, with maximum sustained winds of at least 74 miles an hour or 64 knots, and they originate over the tropical oceans and driven principally by the heat transfer from the ocean. Both the sensible heat that we can feel and the heat from latent heat from condensation, which I'll talk about in a minute. Now there's 80 to 90 tropical cyclones, and let me go over to that again. All of these rotating storms are tropical cyclones in the meteorological world. But in the Florida, in the North Atlantic, we call them hurricanes. The size averages 300 miles in diameter, which is the length of the Florida Peninsula, but they can be as small as 100 miles an hour, 100 miles in diameter. They can be as large as 1,000 miles in diameter. They all vary, they're all different. Storm forward speed, if any, averages 10 to 15 knots. The expected path and intensity is very difficult to predict. Now here's back at the 2004 hurricane season where we had 4 hurricanes cross Florida, but 3 of those hurricanes crossed central Florida. Notice they're drawn as lines, but like I said, you need to think of that storm as having a swath. Instead of thinking of a edger, think of a lawnmower, think of a rotating something to give it some size. Here's the swath from data after the storm. This is a typical long landfalling hurricane where you can see the red is the most intensive winds at 110 to 120 miles an hour. And as it comes across the land, it loses some of its intensity, but once it exits the land, it'll intensify again if there's warm water. Here is an unusual but much different hurricane, Hurricane Charlie. Hurricane Charlie was almost like an intensive tornado. It was moving quick, intense winds. And here was Hurricane Jeannie. This one, again, was kind of a typical hurricane where it made landfall and started to slow down. Now, hurricanes are dangerous. They cause major damage from storm surge, wind damage, rip currents, very underestimated problem with rip currents, flooding, and tornadoes. We're here to talk about aviation. Who's at risk? Now remember what I said, they're all tropical cyclones, but in the Pacific we call them typhoons, in the Atlantic we call them hurricanes, in the Indian Ocean we call them tropical cyclones. Around Australia they have a bunch of different names, but the meteorological name is a cyclone. But in the maritime industries, in the navies, in the super tankers, and in the container ships, that industry refers to them as tropical revolving storms. Now, who's at risk? This is a very common image that's in most publications, but all it shows you is where the hurricanes make landfall. This is the important diagram that shows you really who's at risk, because that hurricane is carrying billions of gallons of water with it, and it's going to give it up somewhere. If the hurricane recurves and goes out in the Pacific, in the Atlantic, it'll eventually dump that water in the ocean. But if it doesn't, it's going to dump that water somewhere in that image. Now, we're going to talk a little quickly about tracks in just a minute. September 10th is statistically the most likely day to have a hurricane based on data from 1944 to 2020. That does not mean there'll necessarily be a hurricane on the 10th. It just means that's the peak of the hurricane season. Now, hurricane formation. Anytime there's warm tropical ocean water of at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 27 degrees centigrade down approximately 300 feet, you've got to have a mass of hot energy for that hurricane to suck up. Official hurricane season is June 1 through November 30th, but most tropical storms form in late summer, early autumn, August, September, October. Hurricane lifespan. The average lifespan is 10 days to 2 weeks, although we've had some last a month. On the average, there are 6 hurricanes that impact the United States every year, but it only takes one. Now, we generally talk about the climatology. How do we come up with this hurricane season? Notice June and July, there's not much activity. Starting in August, things crank up. September is usually the maximum year. October can have some severe storms also. I said the water's got to be at least 80 degrees. This is August of 2023. Look at the water. We have 87, 90 degrees, 85. There's no problem with energy in the water. What are the deaths from in a hurricane? Originally, it was the storm surge was the biggest problem, but the National Weather Service released a new image last week that I don't happen to have a copy of. Rip currents have overtaken storm surge because people now understand what storm surge is and need to get away from it. But too many people want to hang out on the beach and see the effects of the hurricane, and they're drowning in storm surge. Now, what's that hurricane do? Let's take a look at storm surge. This is Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. This is on the coast of Mississippi. You can see the house on the left before the hurricane. Nothing on the right but the tree after the hurricane. Inland flooding. Remember I said a typical hurricane has 60 billion gallons of water. It's going to give it up somewhere, and it's going to cause severe inland flooding. High winds. We can have winds up to 150 to 200 miles an hour, and they're going to do damage. Some hurricanes spawn a lot of tornadoes. And now let's take a look at the actual hurricane if you're not familiar with one. Let's look at that cross section in the lower right. The hurricane in the middle has an eye, and around the outside of the eye is an eye wall. Think of it kind of like a funnel. It turns out the eye wall is the most intense, dangerous part of that hurricane. Going up to the upper right picture, you can see there are all kinds of bands around the hurricane at the low level. We call those rain bands, and we'll look at those now. Here you can see those rain bands. There can be one eye wall, there can be 2 eye walls. Generally, the outer eye wall is in the process of taking over the inner eye wall in what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. But you can see those rain bands, we call them inner and outer, or primary and secondary. That's the first thing that's going to impact you if a hurricane's coming towards you. And they can have intense thunderstorms, rain, lightning, etc. This is a computer simulation of one. And once again, you can see we have a couple eye walls and we have lots of rain bands. Now, I'm going to use an example. This is a cross-section of a radar output from Hurricane Andrew in 1992. Hurricane Andrew is still the worst hurricane to ever hit the state of Florida. Let's look at the spiral rain bands. They extend out 100 to 500 miles. They're intense, organized thunderstorms with shower cells. Last time I talked about thunderstorms, so basically a hurricane is just a group of intense thunderstorms. Between the rain bands, we have stratiform precipitation, and we can have primary and secondary or inner and outer rain bands, thunderstorms with heavy rain, strong winds, tornadoes, also convective bands and straight hurricane squall lines. So when you think of a squall line out Midwest, you think of a line of thunderstorms. Here, that line of thunderstorms is what the rain bands are. Now, the eye wall in the middle of I said the middle of the hurricane has an eye, but that reddish part around the eye that looks like a big donut, that's the eye wall. That's the heart of the hurricane, made up of short segments of monstrous thunderstorms, similar to a mature mesoscale convective system that we talked about last time. Inward and outward spiraling winds, I'm going to show you in a minute. Vertical or slanted outward wall, I'm going to show you that in a minute. This is where the fiercest winds and heaviest rainfall at 1,500 to 3,000 feet above sea level are. Typical winds are 115 to 150 miles an hour. In excess of 200 mile an hour winds have been recorded. Ocean waves below the eye wall are 15 to 40 feet. Strong hurricanes exhibit double eye walls with a moat in between, and like I said, that's usually during the eye wall replacement cycle. Here we have a image on the left from Hurricane Hunter aircraft. Hurricane eye wall can be vertical, but typically slopes up and out, referred to as the stadium effect or cereal bowl shape. On the right, we have a cross section of radar imagery going up 1,500, 8,000, 15,000. And by looking at this diagram, you can see why the hurricane hunters generally fly in between 8,000 and 10,000 feet where there's much less wind so they don't endanger the aircraft. Now the eye, the actual center of the hurricane, that's the most recognizable feature of the storm. It's the storm's axis of rotation, typically nearly circular or elliptical. There's sinking and warming airflow going down into the eye. Usually it's calm, free of high clouds, can be clear to scattered low clouds. Typical eye is 20 to 40 miles in diameter, exceptionally low air pressure. Smaller eye generally means a more intense hurricane. And this is one of the oldest phenomena known in the science of meteorology. Now here's a good picture of that picture from the Hurricane Hunter. In the foreground is actually a cloud base that's in the eye, but above that you see the slanting out eye wall. And here's another picture of a hurricane from space. Now today we look at hurricanes using satellites, ground and airborne radar, aircraft weather balloons, GPS radio zones, GPS drop wind zones. However, before the 1960s, before satellites and sophisticated radar, this is what we had to tell how bad a hurricane was. This is a plot from a barograph. Where that line dips down the lowest was the lowest barometric pressure, but you would only get this if the hurricane went right over your station and the hurricane didn't destroy the station and the barometer. Here's what that microbarometer looked like. Here on the inside it has a set of bellows. I'm going to hold this up real quick. These are the bellows, and this is there we go. This is exactly what's inside your aircraft's barometer. Here's the barometer. Whoop, there's the barometer. These are the bellows that are inside the barometer, and this is what's inside the microbarograph. Okay. Okay, so that's all we had before. We still use these, but they're all electronic now. Now, the sun is the energy for all of Earth's weather, and it's definitely the energy that heats up the water that's going to feed the hurricane. However, there's got to be water vapor in the atmosphere. Without water, we don't get thunderstorms, we don't get tornadoes, we don't get hurricanes. Now, last time when I did thunderstorms, I went into the partial lifting of air and in the instability. I don't have time for that today, but I want you to know that everything that drives a thunderstorm, rising air to the lifted condensation level where the dew point is, the creation of positive buoyancy, and then the updrafts up to where the water gets used up during condensation, that's exactly what's happening in the eye wall of the hurricane. This is a picture from a weather book on gliding, which has an excellent diagram. That initial rise is known as the dry adiabatic lapse rate. Through the cloud, it's the saturated or moist adiabatic lapse rate, and once it leaves the cloud, it's back. This is called the lapse rate. It's back to the dry adiabatic lapse rate. Now, anywhere there's water and land on planet Earth, there's the potential for a sea breeze. The solar radiation is at the wrong wavelength to heat the air, barely heats the air. So it'll heat the ground, and the ground will re-radiate and heat at the right wavelength to heat the air. So the air on planet Earth is heated from the bottom up. If it gets heated near the water, as the air starts to rise and create an updraft, it'll pull in air over the water, and that'll create the sea breeze. The unique thing that happens in Florida, in the Florida Peninsula, is we have the Gulf on one side of the state and the Atlantic Ocean on the other side, and thus we get a dual sea breeze. You can see in this animation the air is coming in from both coasts. And if there were no other weather systems in the rainy season in the summer in Florida, we'd have thunderstorms right up and down the middle of the state. But there usually is something else going on, so it tends to move around a little bit. Now, this is one of the most standard historical plots we have of a cross-section of the eye wall of a hurricane. And what I've done is taken that and flipped it over and put another image right next to it to give you an idea of what a cross-section through a whole hurricane would look like. It's probably a little too close together, but I want to call your attention to those arrows on the bottom of the picture. I'm going to back up to the other one. You can see those arrows coming in. They come in and they go up through the eye wall, just like the updrafts in a hurricane, in a thunderstorm. And that intense flow is what drives the hurricane. So the hurricane starts out as a group of thunderstorms, and we'll go into that in the middle. But now I want you to look carefully at this picture. Notice in the middle of this image, there's nothing. That's the equator of planet Earth. Storms can't form at the equator because we don't have any Coriolis effect, or the effect of the rotation of planet Earth. So we've got to be 5 degrees, approximately 5 degrees north or south of the equator to be able to form a hurricane or a tropical cyclone. What happens then? This Coriolis effect in the northern hemisphere causes things to go to the right. So in the image in the very middle, this is Hurricane Daniel in 2006 in the northern hemisphere. As these winds get sucked in, they're turning to the right, and the global effect is to turn the storm to the left. So hurricanes rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it's just the opposite. Here's a visualization. The image on the left says vertical cross-section of the hurricane, a schematic. Basically, that's the eye wall. The air is coming in and it's spinning and it's going up through the eye wall and it's being exhausted. On the right is another image of that. It's very hard to see in this picture, but we have air coming in through the bottom and going up through the eye wall. Once it goes up through the eye wall, it's exhausted at 50 to 60,000 feet, but some of it comes back down into the eye to cause the eye. And as we know, in the case of a figure skater, when the figure skater pulls their arms in, they can rotate faster. It's what we call the conservation of angular momentum. And thus, the tighter the eye wall is, the more intense the wind can be. Now, what's the formation of a tropical cyclone or hurricane? You can see that's the African continent on the right. Most of the storms that eventually affect the United States form over Africa or over Ethiopia, where there are knife-edge mountains sticking up. As it comes across the African continent, usually in what we call the intertropical conversion zone, if there's enough moisture available, we're going to get a tropical wave or an easterly wave. As it continues to move, it can turn into a tropical depression if the conditions are favorable. And eventually we get rotation from the Coriolis effect, and we'll have a tropical storm if the winds are 34 knots to 39 miles an hour. Once it reaches hurricane winds of 64 knots or 74, we call it a hurricane. Right now, we have a couple storms in the Caribbean, and they're not doing anything because there's so much upper aloft wind to tear them up, and we have all kinds of dust still coming off the African coast. How fast can all this happen? This is Hurricane Irma in 2017. In 3 days, it went from a depression to a hurricane. So it all depends on the condition. What's the most dangerous area of the hurricane? It's what we call the right front quadrant. The hurricane is turning counterclockwise, and yet this one is moving to the northwest. You add the wind speed in the hurricane to the forward motion, it's going to be highest wind speed in the right front quadrant, lowest wind speed in the left rear quadrant. Now let's take a look at these tracks. This is the part you got to pay attention to if you're anywhere near the coast. Hurricane motion. Tropical storms go where the planetary winds they are embedded in takes them. So do clouds, so do thunderstorms, but it's a real big deal with tropical cyclones or hurricanes. And the comparison we give is a cork in a stream of water. That cork is going to go wherever that water takes it. Hurricane tracks. Storm tracks can wobble, turn, make loops, wiggle, curve back on its track, meander back and forth, slow down, and stop. And we've had hurricanes stop in Florida. Here's some examples of tropical cyclones in the Pacific. They do all kinds of things. Now, one thing I want to point out, in the Atlantic Ocean, the distance between Africa and the United States is about 5,000 miles. In the Pacific Ocean, which is almost half of the globe, the distance from North American continent to, say, Japan is about 8,000 miles. So there's a lot more area for the storm to grow in the Pacific than there is in the Atlantic. And in the Atlantic, we call them hurricanes. In the Pacific, we call them typhoons. Right now, there is a system hitting Hawaii, the big island of Hawaii as we speak. It's Tropical Storm Lala, and this morning it went from being a tropical storm to a hurricane, but they only expect it to be a Category 1. Hopefully everybody there is ready for it. Oh, there it is, good. There's Lala right over the top of the big island of Hawaii right now. So they're going to have winds of probably 70 to 90 miles an hour, and it's expected to dump 10 to 20 inches of rain. I've been there before. It's going to be an incredible thing. Now, let's talk about that storm surge again. This is a very famous situation that's in all the books on hurricanes. This is Hurricane Camille in 1969. This is the coast of Mississippi. That's the Rickaloo Apartments on the top view. That's a 3-story apartment building. 15 people approximately decided to stay behind and have a hurricane party. Below is what was left after the storm surge, basically just the foundation and the swimming pool. Of those 15 people, one lady survived. She was found hanging on to a telephone pole about 5 miles away from the location. Now let's talk about aviation. Recommendations from the Aircraft Owner and Pilots Association. First off, if you're anywhere near the coast, consider buying a space in a hangar built since 1992, because since Hurricane Andrew, all the building codes went up. Securing your aircraft outdoor. Look for an open space clear without blowable objects. Try to find somewhere where something isn't going to blow into your plane. But remember, the wind direction is going to change as the storm goes by. If you're in the area during the tie it down upwind, secure latch doors and windows, and cover engine inlets, pitot tubes, and static ports. Wheels, chalk the wheels and set the parking brake. Secure to anchored cables and or dig a hole to put each wheel in, and deflate the tires to keep your aircraft in place. Note, check your pilot operating handbook for system for heat expansion on the brake. It may tell you not to set the brake. If somebody's going to move your aircraft to deal with the changing wind speed, don't set the aircraft brake. It all depends. Control locks. Make sure your control surfaces can't move or flap around in high winds. Install internal and external gust locks. Avoid looping a seatbelt around the controls, because this could set the controls in a climbing turn, which is exactly what the aircraft will attempt to do in severe winds. Tie downs. Always use tie down rings, not any other part of the aircraft. Use nylon or and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. Use nylon or Dacron rope or chains. Don't use old manila rope. Try to position the tie downs at a 45-degree angle. In the left picture, you see a tie down ring or eye, and in the right-hand side, you see that plane being tied down at a 45-degree angle. Now, let's do a review. The meteorological term for a hurricane is a tropical cyclone. There are 80 to 90 tropical cyclones worldwide per year. Size averages 300 miles in diameter, but they can be as small as 100 miles. They can be as large as 1,000 miles. All tropical cyclones are unique. They're all different. Storm's forward speed, if any, averages 10 to 15 knots. Although hurricane season is officially June 1 through November 30th, most hurricanes occur in the autumn during August, September, and October, with September being the most active. The most dangerous area of the hurricane is the right front quadrant. The most intense and violent weather in a hurricane takes place in the eye wall. Storm wind speed must reach 64 knots or 74 miles an hour to be labeled as a hurricane. The eye of the hurricane is usually calm and possesses exceptionally low pressure. For a hurricane to form, conditions must be just right. The movement of a hurricane depends on the prevailing winds. Remember the cork in the stream analogy. Most fatalities, deaths during landfall hurricanes take place due to coastal flooding during a storm surge, and now we know during rip current, sorry, thank you. Hurricanes do not form close to the equator due to the lack of rotational energy from the lack of Coriolis effect. The thermal energy that powers a hurricane is primarily from latent heat during condensation. There's sensible heat just from the evaporation of the water, and then as the water is picked up in the updrafts and water condensation takes place, it gives up the heat. We call it latent heat. Primary physical processes fueling a hurricane are evaporation and condensation. September 10th is statistically the most likely day for a hurricane. prior to radar and weather satellites, we used recording barometers. The sun is the primary source of energy for all weather on Earth. Now, in just the 2 minutes I have left, we all know about the hurricane hunters. Colonel Joseph Duckworth and his navigator, Lieutenant Ralph O'Hare, back in July of 1943 near Galveston, Texas, made the first penetration with an aircraft into a hurricane in an AT-6 trainer. Then we would use B-29s after World War II, then DC-6s, along with Lockheed Super Constellations. Today, for the research part, NOAA uses 2 Lockheed Electras. There's one taken off from Lakeland. It's going to swing around. One of them's called Kermit, one of them's called Miss Piggy. This is obviously Kermit. Okay. And here's the normal hurricane hunters. They're always going out to get data for the National Hurricane Center. These are the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron, known as the Hurricane Hunters. They fly out of Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. They have 10 WC-130J Hercules aircraft. They describe their mission as a roller coaster inside of a car wash when they're flying through the eye wall. All those pilots are volunteers. Most of them are airline pilots. There's another good look at that eye wall, and that concludes what I have. Thank you for joining us. This is Dr. George Bartisla with the Florida Aviation Network. I'll see you next time for another weather topic. Now stand by for the number for your wings credit.
a very young age, I just saw the magic that was the airlines.
I wanted the adventure. I wanted the opportunity to travel.
PMOT just like popped up, and I thought that was fate.
All of the skills, everything that you're going to need to succeed, you can get at PMOT.
I never envisioned that I would have a career in aviation. And now that I've been here, I can't imagine working any other place.
From a very young age, I just saw the magic that was the airlines.
I wanted the adventure. I wanted the opportunity to travel.
PMOT just like popped up, and I thought that was fate.
All of the skills, everything that you're going to need to succeed, you can get at PMOT.
I never envisioned that I would have a career in aviation. And now that I've been here, I can't imagine working any other place.
From a very young age, I just saw the magic that was the airlines.
I wanted the adventure. I wanted the opportunity to travel.
PMOT just like popped up, and I thought that was fate.
All of the skills, everything that you're going to need to succeed, you can get at PMOT.
I never envisioned that I would have a career in aviation. And now that I've been here, I can't imagine working any other place.